It was the deadliest week yet in NFL survivor pools, as Atlanta and Cincinnati cost 40% of survivors' lives in week 8. We'll get you ready for week 9 as we discuss and debate 5 key games, and it's coming up next. Hello, everyone. I'm Eric Lee.
And I'm Gary Kurtzman, one of the two co-founders of Fantasy Football Consultants, back for this week only because Michael Wiley, your regular co-host, has figured that the World Series is somehow more exciting than football. Eric, I don't really understand that at all. Do you?
No, it's called the Fantasy Football Consultants, Mr. Wiley. But no, his LA Dodgers are in the World Series, and he's checking them out. So, Gary, thank you for coming back and filling in this week. And we've got a very interesting week to talk about. Week 9 in the NFL Survivor Pools after a crazy week 8. Michael, although full disclosure, I said definitely go with the Colts. I called them the perfect pick last week, and not only did the Colts win, they won easily. But my backup picks, if you'd already used the Colts, were Atlanta or Cincinnati.
No.
Yikes. Wow. So,
although in your defense, I doubt that you knew that Atlanta was going to be down Drake London, or frankly, the quarterback too, right? I mean,
absolutely. I didn't know about Drake London. And
without Penix in London, that's tough.
Yeah, and I think hopefully that got some people off Atlanta as long as they were able to change their picks. Some leagues, you have to get your picks in significantly early. And man, what a collapse by the Cincinnati Bengals. They had that game look like in the bag, and the Jets got their first win of the year. So, all right, but you know what? This week, you're going to be able to get Gary Kurtzman's expert analysis to get you through week 9, as well as mine. So let's go through it. Here are the 5 games we think you should be considering. The LA Rams are almost 2-touchdown favorites, 13.5-point favorites at home against New Orleans. Green Bay is also at home, 12.5-point favorites over Carolina. The LA Chargers, 10.5-point favorites at Tennessee. Detroit's at home, and they're 9.5-point favorites against Minnesota. And the game we want to start off with, Baltimore, 7.5-point favorites at Miami. It is not often here in week 9 that we can be talking about picking a team that has only won twice.
The Baltimore Ravens. And talking about them confidently.
Well, they're 2-5. And probably one of the biggest disappointments at the beginning of how well this team has done. Obviously, the issue is at quarterback, right? Cooper Rush was so bad that even Hundley is an upgrade, and they looked a lot better with Hundley. But you're only considering Baltimore, folks, if I almost said Michael Jackson, if Lamar Jackson is quarterback. Am I right on that?
I mean, you are. And the good news is they expect him now, just for the home viewer, we're filming this on Tuesday. So I will say they are expecting him to start practicing Wednesday and play this weekend. So more updates, and you'll want to monitor that if Baltimore is your pick. But Eric, you started out with the fact that Baltimore's a 2-5 team, but the fact is, it's not often that you want to pick a 2-5 team confidently. But as I know, and many of the home viewers, Baltimore's a 2-5 team because of their health, because of their injuries. I mean, I could read off a litany of all pros, not just your Joe Schmoes, your all pros who have been injured so far this season. Lamar Jackson missed 3 games. Ronnie Staley, all-pro offensive tackle, missed 2 games. Patrick Ricard, their fullback, been all-pro for literally the last 6 or 7 seasons, missed the entire season. Kyle Van Noy missed 3 games. And what do they all have in common, Eric? They're all expected to be back this week if they didn't already come back last week. And that, I think, is going to be huge for the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah, and everything's accelerated because they're playing this Thursday. So if you see that Lamar Jackson is practicing Wednesday, that's definitely a good sign. So we've talked about this many times. I have said on this show recently, I just don't like Thursday games. There's less rest, there's more volatility, and the last two Thursdays, what have we had? Upsets. So you know what? I'm out. I'm out
You're
on this game.
out
I'm out. I am
for
not.
you.
Yeah, look at me. I'm like on the Shark Tank. You know what? I'm out. I'm not buying this product called the Baltimore Ravens 2 wins.
Well,
But you make good points about their health.
Well, I'll make one more good point, not to try and sway you, Eric, but just to get you to change your mind. Okay, so here it goes. Look, first of all, we all know that Baltimore is a damn good team. They were 12-5 last year. They were projected before the health concerns to win the AFC North again this year for literally at least third or fourth time in a row now. But think about the other side of the ball. Think about Miami. Miami's literally their only wins were against the New York Jets, who are terrible and can probably lose to half the top 25 college teams in football. Oh, and by the way, it was only a one-score win at that. And the Atlanta Falcons, which were down Michael Penix and down Drake London when they didn't know they were going to be down Drake London. Michael Penix was questionable as of Saturday night. Thought they might have him too. The whole game plan went awry. Put it this way, Miami has not had any kind of quality win whatsoever. And when they lose by an average of more than 12 points a game. That's a lot of cushion, Eric, a lot of room for error. So I will tell you, that is not my favorite game this week. I'll keep you in suspense about what is. But I do think that if your choice is Baltimore, it's a good one. You can feel very secure about it.
Yeah, so there's two reasons I was really not liking this game, besides just the Thursday night thing. One is I would have been more confident without that Miami performance on Atlanta. They're all of a sudden okay. They showed a little bit of life for the first time really this year since Tyreek Hill went out. But it's the future value. So I'd rather play Baltimore when they host the team you were talking about that can't beat most college teams, the New York Jets. That is in
week 12.
And right after that in week 13, they host Cincinnati. And, who just lost to the Jets. So yeah. All right.
Yeah, well, future value for sure.
Okay. Shall we go on?
It doesn't seem like Baltimore is either one of our top pick this week. So what's the next game?
The Detroit Lions are 9.5-point favorites at home against Minnesota. Now, I'm going to fully acknowledge that most NFL Survivor players have already picked Minnesota. But the question is, if you still have already picked Detroit. But the question is, if you still have Detroit, is this the right time to pull the trigger? I mean, they're almost a two-digit favorite here. What do you think?
Well, again, not my favorite pick, but I am very, very confident in the Detroit Lions. I'll leave you to discuss their future value, which is why they're not my favorite pick. Hey, I'll say this much. If you're going to pick the Lions, pick them at home. Pick them at home. I mean, there's death, there's taxes, and there's the Lions at Ford Field, right? I mean, they're 3-0 versus the spread, not just the game, the spread at home. They're 1-3 against the spread on the road. That's where all their losses are. Now, the Lions and the Saints have by far the most massive home and away split in football. I will say this much about their opponents, okay? J.J. McCarthy better be ready to play. Carson Wentz is having surgery. J.J. McCarthy has had two NFL games in his entire career, despite the fact that this is his second year in football. And he showed next to nothing in those two games. So much so, Justin Jefferson was starting to get vocal about his frustrations about McCarthy. It's not like the guy threw much in Michigan either, since they ran twice as many plays as they did passing. It was a little bit of a head scratcher that they drafted him, a little bit of a head scratcher that they let Sam Darnold go, and they trusted in J.J. McCarthy so much. He's done nothing to prove it. Frankly, there was talk in Minnesota they were using his ankle injury to bench him, right? To get the, well, of course, now they can't bench him for once anymore. Things are looking bad, folks. I really honestly believe that the Minnesota Vikings are going to have a losing record between now and the rest of the season. I think the Lions beat them easily. If not for the future value, I'd say pick Detroit for sure.
Yeah. I think the Vikings want their warranty back on J.J. McCarthy. Like you said, it is the future value. I mean, Detroit, on top of everything else, is coming off a bye, so they're well rested. What is the future value that we've been talking about? It's week 12 and week 14. They host the New York Giants and Dallas. Two teams that they're substantially better than both of and at home. So, yeah, you probably don't have Detroit, but if you do, save them. All right, this leads us to the three games that are the double digit favorites, and I think they're intriguing. We'll just work our way up. Let's talk about the LA Chargers, our 10.5 point favorites at Tennessee. You guys have heard me say this week after week after week, so I'm going to say it again. The worst team in the NFL is the Tennessee Titans. And every other week I've said, I know that the Jets have not won yet, but the Tennessee's worse. Now I don't have to have that caveat. They're the
Right.
worst team in the NFL. They got a gift win by Arizona by multiple ridiculous things, including the guy not going into the end zone and holding the ball, and another ridiculous fumble that changed the game. So what about the other games? What about their losses? Gary, they have lost by 8, 10, 14, 18, 21, 24, and 26 points. So,
Ouch.
yeah, I mean,
I'm good at math, by the way. That's an average margin of loss of 16 points. That's insane. That's insane. It's crazy how bad they are now. The Chargers, by the way, I was hoping to save this game for last, just because I want to say this home viewer is my lock of the week. The Gary Kurtzman insert graphic here, lock of the week for the Chargers for all the reasons that Eric was talking about, and I won't embellish. I will say, and for those of you who are thinking, well, hey, the Chargers are an up and down team. You never quite know what you're going to get with the Chargers. They can beat the Chiefs and beat the Broncos in 2 weeks and then lose to the Giants and get crushed by the Commanders and the Colts 2 weeks later. Hell, they nearly lost to the Miami Dolphins, for crying out loud. I get all that. I get what people would say. You're banking on the Titans, baby. We talked about the 16-point margin of victory, right? Or the margin of loss for the Titans. The Chargers are so well and good enough. They're healthy. The Titans aren't. And Eric, not to steal your future value thunder, but the Chargers have the weakest future value of any of the 5 teams that we're going to discuss. If you were saving them, you could theoretically save them for week 13 against the Las Vegas Raiders, where they're favored by 7 points. But that's the weakest future value of anybody. And frankly, a team that's 5-3 and looking even better than their record versus the Tennessee Titans, easily the worst team in football with very little future value. If you don't pick them now, there's nothing I can say to convince you to pick them ever, I guess.
okay, so let's remember they're playing at Tennessee. I know, you probably would like them if they played on Mars against Tennessee, but
you mean the place where Tennessee's never covered the spread so far this season? That place?
that place, yes.
Okay, just checking.
And I do like that the Chargers not coming off a mini bye, I call it, right? Because they played on Thursday, so they got few extra days rest. I want to really compare this to one of the other games that we're talking about, so I'm going to hold any other of my comments in a minute. But since you like the Chargers, the team that I really do not like this week is the Green Bay Packers. So let's dispense of this game really quickly. They're 12.5 point favorite. Again, Green Bay is a team that most people have already used. But look, you might say, well, what if I still have them? Should I be picking them this week? Gary, do you remember at the end of week 2, they were talking about Green Bay Packers, Super Bowl bound? Well, what has happened since? They lost to the Cleveland Browns. They tied the Dallas Cowboys. They really didn't look that great last week before this past week against Cincinnati. They barely won, and then they beat Aaron Rodgers
behind the Steelers for more than half the game last week. They didn't pull ahead until the fourth quarter.
Right. So, look, I have Josh Jacobs on my fantasy team. Okay, I know all about him. Something's wrong with him. I think what's wrong with him is he's injured, and he's still playing. So I don't know. This team is not a lock. It's not one of the top teams. And for many weeks, we've been saying Carolina is one of the weaker teams. I don't think they are anymore. I mean, they're 4-4. Are they a great team? Of course not. But I can name another five, six, seven teams I think that are worse than Carolina. So I think I
Yeah.
disagree with the lines makers here. I feel more confident with the Chargers beating Tennessee, even though the Green Bay is at home against Carolina. They're 2 points. What do you think?
I agree 100%. This is the trap game. This is the one game out of the five that I think is the trap game. First of all, when Green Bay wins, they only outscore their opponents by one score. They don't have nearly the margin of error of the other favorite teams in the other four games. They don't have convincing wins except for one win earlier in the year. And Carolina, they're not even worst team in football. First of all, they're 4-4, but second of all, I can name 10 teams that I think Carolina and a neutral field can beat, and I can probably do it off the top of my head. It's not just the 4-4 rank; it's the fact that first of all, this is all predicated on Bryce Young playing. Let me just say that at the outset. This is all predicated on Bryce Young playing. If he doesn't play, this is not a trap game. Green Bay wins easily. But he is expected to play. And the things that are going on for the Carolina Panthers, we don't have to get into it too much. I'll just give you a 10-second synopsis. First of all, Bryce Young's QBR is more than 10 points higher than it was last year. He's obviously continuing to improve. Teteroa McMillan is already a top 10 receiver in the NFL in catches and yards. He is a huge talent. He's your 1-1 pick in dynasty drafts, for crying out loud. Rico freaking Dowdle is officially taking over for Chuba Hubbard. Rico Dowdle is a stud. Now, that tells you a lot about two things. One, Rico Dowdle's talent, and two, what the hell were they thinking by never using him in Dallas? Okay, and I don't have a good answer to that last question, but Rico Dowdle looks fantastic. He's been exceptional behind a pretty darn good offensive line. PFF grades it in the top 30%. And what about the other side of the ball? They're seventh rated in total defense in the NFL. Look, here's the deal. This is a team that can win on any given Sunday. Do I think they're going to beat the Packers? No. But do I think they could beat the Packers? Absolutely. Which means hell nah. Don't go. We have way too many other good teams in this week to even waste our time talking about this game any further.
All right. So we have eliminated Green Bay, and it sounds like we eliminated Detroit and Baltimore. So the theme song for this show is I Love LA. So the two LA teams are the ones that are in consideration. The LA Rams are 13.5-point favorites at home against the New Orleans Saints. All right, cue the montage. I've been telling you guys 4 weeks to save the Rams for week 9. This is very important for people to remember, and probably one of the key reasons why I probably will not pick the LA Rams for week 2. Look at the future value. It's not that the Rams have a ton of future value, but it's when they have their future value. Week 9, they host New Orleans. I'm completely out here because I'm keeping my oath. I told everybody, I've told them for multiple weeks, I am not picking the LA Rams, and aren't I glad I didn't do that last week? I am not picking the LA Rams until week 9 because that's when I want to use them when they're hosting the Saints. And now we are here at week 9, Gary, and we face a New Orleans Saints team which is bad as advertised, as we thought at the beginning of the year. They are 1-7. They have lost 3 straight. In my opinion, they are the worst team in the NFC because the Jets and Tennessee are not in the NFC. If you look at the points for and the points against, it's the worst of any team in the NFL that's not named the New York Jets. No, sorry, not named the Tennessee Titans.
Tennessee Titans, yep.
Not named the Tennessee Titans, sorry. Yeah, so this is a great matchup. The Rams had a bye last week, so they're coming off a bye. They're fresh. I love this offense. I always have this little concern, Gary, you tell me how valid it is, that Matthew Stafford is so important to this team, and he's healthy, and I always never know whether he will be down the road, and how much that hurts this team. You know who else is healthy? I know you know who else is healthy, because you and I are playing in the fantasy league this year against each other, and because I never get any luck, Puka Nacua, who's your guy, has been out, but he's expected to play this week. if you believe in karma and my bad luck in fantasy, you can expect Puka Nacua is going to have a huge game this week. The Rams are going to win this game. So what are your thoughts? You don't have this as your game. Um,
Only because of future value.
okay.
Only because of future value.
Let's just talk about winning. Do you
look,
have
yeah.
If well, all right. Do you think they're about the same likelihood, or do you to win this week?
I think both LA teams are damn near stone cold locks, 95% for each individual game. The Saints are a bad team. The Saints are just a bad team. I mean, their average margin of loss is well, it's damn near 10 points, right? And it's probably going to be a lot worse because this isn't the show me the money game. This is the show me the new QB game. And I really need to work on my delivery on that one. Tyler Show is going to be the QB. Spencer Rattler. If your quarterback for this week couldn't even beat out Spencer Rattler to be the QB earlier in the year, you got QB problems. Nobody knows about this guy because it's not like Tyler Show has ever been a starting quarterback for any NFL team in the league. And that probably says everything you need to know. But man, this was a bad offense whose only real weapon is Chris Olave. And I'm such an Olave truther. I really desperately wish he could be traded to another team because he deserves it. But other than that, Alvin Kamara, I think, had his 51st birthday the other day. Don't fact check me on that. And you can get lucky every once in a while with Rashid Shaheed going over the top. But they would need so much more than that to beat the Rams. My God. I mean, and the Rams, you mentioned yourself, Puka Nacua. I mean, the Rams are top 10 in offense. They're top 10 and actually top 5 in offense. When Puka plays and top 10 in defense. And there's the second biggest spread of any game all year for a reason, right? There's no question the Rams are going to destroy the Saints at home, by the way. But here's the deal. Future value, Eric. Do you want to? And I know you've said save the Rams for week 9, and I get it. And this is a great week. They do have a 9.5 point implied spread against Carolina in week 13, and they will also play the Arizona Cardinals later in the year. So they do have, I would say, stronger future value than the Chargers.
So here's the thing. This is so easy to set this for the audience so they can make their own decision. Look, if you don't have the Rams or the Chargers, then it's easy. Just pick the other one, right? Pick who you have. But if you have both of them, and I think a lot of people do, it's really a situation between 2 weeks. This week 9 and week 13. Because both of them have good matchups in those 2 weeks, and those are probably the weeks you're going to want to burn them. I know that you mentioned Arizona, but that is very late in the year, and I hate waiting until the end of the year. You never know your situation, at least when they hosted Arizona. So here's the deal. So let's compare this. If you go with the Chargers this week, which I think was your initial suggestion, right? Then you can't use them when they host Las Vegas in week 13. Both road games. Your path is at Tennessee, and then the Rams use them in week 13 at Carolina. My route would be leaning to pick them now hosting New Orleans, and then pick the Chargers when they host Las Vegas. Now, a lot of people don't like the division. I don't care about that. Doesn't bother me. So what do you think about that? Those are the two paths. I think I like the path that gives me the Rams now, and then I'll use the Chargers because there's not a lot of other games in week 13 that are as good as this. Baltimore has one, but I think I'd rather use Baltimore earlier when they host the New York Jets.
Right.
And that's in week 12. So at least right now, it's projecting that these are the two games. So these are the two paths.
You know what? It probably is going to be irrelevant because the LA teams are very high implied spreads to win both games in week 13. And Lord knows, we've talked about how they're going to win both games this week. Maybe it comes down to who do you have more confidence in? The Las Vegas Raiders or the Carolina Panthers, in which case you probably ought to say the Panthers because the Panthers are, I think, objectively a better football team. On the other hand, The Rams implied spread against Carolina in week 13 is higher than the Chargers implied spread against Vegas in week 13 because the Rams are, in fact, a better football team than the Chargers. So, on a relative basis, I think Vegas would say you're better off taking the Chargers now, saving the Rams for later. You may have different viewpoint, rightfully so, because Carolina, they're one of the scarier teams to pick against, right? If you're going to pick against a team, they're not going to be a good team. So among the 500 or lower football teams, they're definitely among the scarier for sure. And if you subscribe to that theory, absolutely, Eric, nobody's gonna look askance if you say, okay, I'm going to take the Rams down, take the Chargers against Vegas later, and punt on any team facing Carolina. Nobody would look askance at that. I think it's just subjective viewpoint at this point.
Yeah, and get your travel bags ready. Your route is both of the teams are on the road. My route is they're both at home. I think I am gonna go with the Rams, which I've said I've been gonna go with for weeks. So if no other reason, I'm already committed to this, and I don't want people to go. Wait a minute, I thought you said you were gonna use them in week 9. No, and I'm not saying it just to be consistent. I really think that that's the route I would go. Pick the Rams this week and then save the Chargers for week 13 when they host Las Vegas, who's really been a mess this year. But I want to make sure I follow you like at Tennessee this week with the Chargers and then use the Rams at Carolina.
I am a statistics and mathematics major, cold, hard calculating numbers. I go with what Vegas says, which is take the Chargers now, save the Rams for week 13. They're both great route, folks. Probably doesn't matter either way.
All right. Well, sounds good. Gary, it was great having you on the show. Thanks so much for filling in for Michael Wiley. Remind you guys, if you made it this part of the video, please help us out. Smash that like button. Share in the comment section who your week 9 survivor pick is, and hit the red subscriber button. Until we break down week 10, take care, everybody.
All right. Bye, everybody.